It was a morning like any other in the quiet sun-bleached village of Gogek, nestled deep in the Turkish countryside. The air was thick with the scent of wild thyme and dust. The only sounds, the distant bleating of goats, and the soft shuffle of an old woman's sandals as she made her way along a crumbling stone path. But on this day, something was different. Something that would shatter the village's peace and send ripples of fear and speculation far beyond its borders. Near the edge of the village, where the land fell away into a tangle of ancient olive trees, a group of children stumbled upon the ruins of an abandoned house. Its walls, scorched and half-collapsed, whispered secrets of a past no one dared to remember. Amid the rubble, glinting in a shaft of morning light, lay a single ornate crucifix, its silver tarnished, but unmistakably out of place in this remote, predominantly Muslim community. Word spread quickly. The local imam arrived, his brow furrowed in concern, followed by curious neighbors whispering in hushed tones. Who had left this symbol of another faith here, and why? The police were called, and soon, the village was swarming with officials, their questions sharp and urgent. The crucifix, it turned out, belonged to a Catholic priest, a foreigner, who had vanished without a trace nearly 3 months before. How did a journey, meant to bridge worlds end, in such chilling silence? What secrets lay buried beneath the dust and stones? As the villagers watched the crucifix being carefully lifted from the ruins, none could have imagined the darkness that was about to be uncovered, or the heartbreak that would follow. Father Michael O'Connor was a man defined by quiet conviction. Born in a small Irish town, he grew up in the shadow of the church, his childhood marked by the gentle rhythms of faith and family. His mother's hands were always folded in prayer, his father's voice a steady presence at Sunday Mass. By the time Michael was 12, he knew his path, a life of service, compassion, and unwavering belief. Yet beneath his calm exterior, there lingered a restlessness, a yearning to do more than simply preach to the converted. He wanted to heal, to bridge divides, to find common ground in a world so often torn apart by difference. Amina Yilmaz, on the other hand, was forged in fire. Raised in Istanbul, she grew up in a bustling neighborhood where the call to prayer echoed through narrow streets and the scent of spices drifted from every window. Her childhood was not easy. Her father, a devout Muslim, was strict and proud, while her mother, a schoolteacher, encouraged her to question, to learn, to dream beyond the boundaries set for her. When Amina was just 16, tragedy struck. Her mother died suddenly, leaving her to navigate a world of expectations and grief. But Amina was resilient. She poured herself into her studies, eventually earning a scholarship to study abroad. Determined to honor her mother's memory by forging her own path, their worlds could not have been more different. Yet fate had other plans. They met at an interfaith conference in Rome, a gathering meant to foster dialogue and understanding between religions. Michael, with his gentle humor and open heart, was drawn to Amina's fierce intelligence and quiet strength. She, in turn, found comfort in his kindness, his willingness to listen without judgment. Over late-night coffees and long walks through ancient streets, a friendship blossomed, one built on mutual respect, shared pain, and a hope that, together, they could make a difference. But beneath the surface, both carried wounds. Michael struggled with doubts about his ability to truly connect across cultures, haunted by memories of a parishioner he couldn't save. Amina too was haunted by the loss of her mother, by the weight of her father's expectations, and by a secret she had never dared to share. Their connection was unlikely, perhaps even impossible. Yet, as they stood on the threshold of something new, neither could have guessed how deeply their lives would become entwined, or how dangerous that connection would prove to be. It began with a simple message, an email from Amina, its subject line reading, "An idea for peace." She wrote of her longing to return home, to see her father after years apart, and of her hope to create something meaningful in the place where her life had begun. Would you come to Turkey? She asked. There is so much pain here, so much misunderstanding. I believe we could do something beautiful together. For Father Michael, the invitation felt like a calling. He imagined the two of them, side by side, leading workshops in Istanbul's old city, speaking to students about compassion and forgiveness. Showing that faith could unite rather than divide. The thought filled him with a sense of purpose he hadn't felt in years. He pictured the faces of those he might help, the bridges he might build, and the possibility of healing wounds, both his own and those of a fractured world. Amina's words were full of hope, but also tinged with vulnerability. She confessed her fears about returning, the uncertainty of how her family would receive her, and the challenges of confronting old ghosts. Yet she believed that Michael's presence would give her strength, and that together they could spark a conversation that might ripple far beyond her village. Still, beneath the excitement, there was a subtle unease. Michael's friends cautioned him about traveling so far, about the risks of crossing cultural boundaries. Even Amina, in her final message, wrote, "It won't be easy. But I think it's worth it." As Michael booked his flight, he felt a flutter of nerves, an awareness that hope and danger often walk hand in hand. But the promise of something greater pulled him forward. Into the unknown. As the departure date drew near, Michael found himself surrounded by a chorus of worried voices. His sister called late at night, her tone tight with anxiety. "Are you sure about this, Michael? Turkey is so far, and you barely know her." His parishioners, too, offered gentle warnings, their concern masked by polite smiles. "It's admirable, Father. But the world is changing. You can't be too careful these days." Michael listened, but his faith was unwavering. He reassured them all, insisting that Amina was trustworthy, that their mission was noble. "We can't let fear dictate our lives," he said, his eyes shining with conviction. "If we don't try to build bridges, who will?" He packed his bags with a sense of purpose, his crucifix tucked safely among his belongings, a symbol of hope he intended to share. Yet, as the plane ticket was printed and the goodbyes were said, a quiet unease crept in. There were stories in the news, travelers who vanished, misunderstandings that turned deadly. Even Michael's dreams grew restless, filled with shadowy figures and distant calls for help. Still, he pressed on, determined to see the good in people, to trust in the path he'd chosen. But there were secrets. Amina never shared truths hidden beneath her hopeful words. Shadows lurking in the corners of her past. And as Michael boarded his flight, he had no idea just how much those secrets would cost. The moment Michael stepped off the plane, Istanbul greeted him with a rush of sensation, warm, fragrant air, tinged with the scent of roasting chestnuts and sea salt. The distant call to prayer weaving through the city's ancient skyline. The airport buzzed with life, a swirl of languages and faces, each carrying their own stories. Michael's heart pounded with anticipation and a touch of awe. He clutched his bag tightly, feeling the weight of his crucifix inside. A small anchor in this sea of unfamiliarity. Amina was waiting for him just beyond customs. Her smile bright, but her eyes shadowed with emotion. She wore a simple headscarf, her posture both proud and tentative. When she saw Michael, her face softened, and for a moment, the years and miles between them seemed to vanish. They embraced awkwardly at first, then with genuine warmth. Both relieved to find something familiar in each other, as they drove through the city. Michael gazed out at the minarets rising above bustling markets. The Bosphorus, shimmering in the afternoon sun. The city was a tapestry of contrasts, ancient and modern, sacred and secular, hope and hardship woven together. Amina pointed out her favorite places, the old bookshop, where she'd spent hours as a girl, the mosque where her mother once prayed. Michael listened, absorbing every detail, grateful for her openness that evening. Over strong tea and sweet baklava, they talked for hours. Amina shared stories of her childhood, her dreams and disappointments, while Michael spoke of his faith and the doubts he rarely voiced. In the gentle glow of Istanbul's lights, their bond deepened, a fragile trust growing between two souls, searching for meaning in a world that often misunderstood them both. As the days unfolded, Michael began to sense the layers beneath Amina's calm exterior. She guided him through Istanbul's winding streets, introducing him to her favorite haunts. But there was always a flicker of hesitation in her eyes, a pause before she spoke of home. One evening, as they sat on a rooftop overlooking the city's golden domes, Amina finally let her guard down. She spoke quietly, her voice barely rising above the hum of distant traffic. "My father was never the same after my mother died," she confessed, her hands trembling around her teacup. "He became stricter, more fearful. He wanted to protect me, but it felt like a cage." Michael listened, his heart aching for her. He saw the pain she tried to hide, the grief that still haunted her, the loneliness of being misunderstood in her own family. Amina's return to Turkey was not just a homecoming. It was a confrontation with old wounds. She admitted she hadn't told her father about Michael's visit, fearing his reaction. "He wouldn't understand," she whispered. "He believes faith is a wall, not a bridge." There were other secrets, to rumors of family disputes. A brother who had disappeared years ago. Whispers of shame that clung to her name in the village. Despite the shadows, Michael's trust in Amina only deepened. He admired her courage, her willingness to face the past even as it threatened to swallow her. Yet, as he watched her struggle with memories and fears she could barely name, he couldn't shake the feeling that something was closing in around them. The city's beauty now seemed tinged with danger, and the bond they shared felt both precious and precarious, balanced on the edge of secrets yet to be revealed. At first, the changes were so subtle that Michael almost convinced himself they were nothing. It began with a series of late-night phone calls to Amina's mobile. Her face would tense as she glanced at the screen, her voice dropping to a whisper as she stepped away to answer. When Michael asked, she brushed it off as family checking in. But her eyes darted nervously, betraying a deeper anxiety. Then came the feeling of being watched. As they walked through the crowded bazaars, Michael noticed the same man lingering by a spice stall, his gaze fixed and unblinking. Once, while they sat in a quiet cafe, a group of young men at a nearby table fell silent when Amina entered, their stares cold and unwelcoming. Michael tried to dismiss it as coincidence, but the sense of unease grew with each passing day. The tension followed them even into the sanctuary of Amina's small apartment. One evening, as they prepared dinner, a rock crashed through the window, shattering glass across the floor. Amina's hands shook as she swept up the shards, insisting it was just neighborhood troublemakers, but Michael saw the fear she tried to hide. He offered to call the police, but she refused, her voice tight. "It will only make things worse." Michael's faith, once a source of comfort, now felt like a fragile shield. He prayed for guidance, for protection, but the city's warmth had turned to suspicion. The hope that had carried him across continents was now shadowed by doubt. He wondered if he truly understood the risks they faced or the secrets Amina was still keeping. And as the days grew darker, he couldn't help but feel that something was closing in. Just out of sight, when Amina suggested they leave Istanbul for her childhood village, Michael agreed, hoping a change of scenery might ease the tension that had settled between them. The journey was long, winding through rugged hills and fields of wildflowers. But as the city faded behind them, Michael felt a growing sense of unease. The village Gurgek was a world apart, small, insular, and wary of outsiders. The air was thick with the scent of earth and wood smoke, and the silence was broken only by the distant clang of a shepherd's bell. From the moment they arrived, Michael sensed they were being watched. Faces peered from behind curtains as they walked the narrow lanes. At the local market, Conversations stopped abruptly when he entered, and the shopkeeper's smile was tight, his eyes flickering with suspicion. Even Amina's relatives greeted her with a mixture of relief and caution, their glances lingering on Michael's collar and the crucifix he wore. The isolation pressed in on him. There was no internet, no easy way to contact the outside world. Amina grew distant, her moods shifting unpredictably. Sometimes she clung to Michael, desperate for reassurance. Other times, she withdrew, her words sharp and defensive. Michael tried to comfort her, but she seemed haunted by memories and fears she wouldn't name. Cultural tensions simmered beneath the surface. Michael's presence was a silent challenge to the village's traditions, and whispers followed them wherever they went. He felt the weight of every stare, every unspoken accusation. The hope that had once united them now felt fragile, battered by suspicion and isolation. Michael realized, with a chill, that he was truly far from home, and that the safety he'd taken for granted was slipping away. One day at a time, it happened on a night, heavy with storm clouds, the air thick and restless. Michael and Amina had argued words, sharp and raw, old wounds reopened by the pressure of their isolation. He left the small house to clear his head, promising to return before midnight. But as the hours slipped by, Amina's worry grew into panic. She searched the empty lanes, calling his name into the darkness, her voice echoing off stone walls and shuttered windows. When she knocked on neighbors' doors, they answered with blank stares or muttered excuses, refusing to meet her eyes. The village that had once been her home now felt alien and cold, its people closed off by suspicion and fear. Amina pleaded for help, but her desperation was met with silence. Some whispered that Michael had simply run away, unable to bear the strain. Others hinted at darker possibilities. Their words, laced with accusation. Amina's heart pounded with dread as she retraced Michael's steps. Searching the fields and abandoned buildings, her mind racing with questions. Where could he have gone? Who had seen him last? Each hour that passed deepened her terror, the sense that something unspeakable had happened, growing impossible to ignore. But the truth was more terrifying than anyone imagined. As dawn broke over the village, Amina realized that Michael was truly gone and that the answers she sought were buried in shadows far darker than she had ever feared. News of Michael's disappearance spread quickly, crossing borders and stirring alarm in distant places. The Turkish police arrived first, their questions brisk and formal, their faces unreadable. They searched the village, combed the fields, and questioned Amina for hours. She tried to explain, her voice trembling with fear and exhaustion, but their skepticism was clear. To them, she was both a grieving friend and a possible suspect, a woman with secrets. Alone in a place where trust was scarce. Word soon reached Michael's family in Ireland, and the Vatican itself became involved, sending envoys and urgent messages. Hope flickered as international attention brought promises of action. Michael's sister called daily, her voice breaking with worry, pleading for updates. The church organized prayer vigils, lighting candles for his safe return. For a moment, it seemed as if the world might close ranks to bring him home. But the reality was far more complicated. Bureaucracy tangled every effort, documents lost in translation, jurisdictional disputes, and cultural misunderstandings that slowed the search to a crawl. The villagers grew wary of outsiders, closing ranks and offering little help. Amina found herself isolated, her every move scrutinized, her grief twisted into suspicion. Each day without answers chipped away at hope, replacing it with a gnawing sense of helplessness as the investigation dragged on. The contrast between hope and reality became painfully clear. The world was watching, but Michael remained missing, and the truth seemed to slip further away with every passing day. Weeks passed with no sign of Michael, until one morning, a group of children playing near the edge of the village stumbled upon the ruins of an old, abandoned house. Amid the rubble, half buried in dust and broken tiles. They found Michael's crucifix, its chain snapped, the silver tarnished, but unmistakable. The discovery sent a jolt of fear through the village, drawing police, journalists, and villagers alike to the scene. As investigators sifted through the debris, more evidence emerged. A torn piece of Michael's shirt, a blood-stained handkerchief, and, hidden beneath a loose floorboard, a set of rosary beads. The clues painted a grim picture. Michael had been there, and something terrible had happened. Under mounting pressure, Amina was brought in for questioning once more. This time, the weight of her secrets became too much to bear. Through tears, Amina confessed what she had hidden. The threats from her estranged brother, the warnings she'd ignored, and the night she saw Michael being dragged from the house by men she recognized from her past. She had been paralyzed by fear, torn between loyalty to her family and her desperate wish to save Michael. The truth was devastating. Michael had been caught in a web of old grudges and cultural tensions, a victim of forces neither he nor Amina could control. The crucifix, left behind in the ruins, was all that remained of his journey, and a chilling reminder of the price they both paid for hope. The days that followed were heavy with sorrow. In Ireland, Michael's family mourned a son and brother lost to a world they barely understood. Their grief sharpened by the questions that would never be answered. Candlelit vigils flickered in the parish where he once preached. His absence, a wound that would not heal. In Turkey, Amina was consumed by guilt, haunted by memories of Michael's kindness and the choices she had made. She withdrew from the village, her once bright spirit dimmed by loss and regret. The community, too, felt the weight of tragedy. Whispers of blame and shame rippled through Gugek, dividing neighbors and families. Some saw Michael as a martyr, others as a cautionary tale. The story made headlines, fueling debates about trust, faith, and the dangers of crossing cultural boundaries. For many, the tragedy became a symbol of how easily hope can be shattered by fear and misunderstanding. Yet, amid the grief, there were moments of quiet reflection, a recognition of the risks taken in the name of connection, and the fragile beauty of reaching across divides, even when the cost is heartbreak. In the months that followed, the legal system moved slowly, weighed down by conflicting testimonies and the complexities of international law. Amina's brother and his accomplices were eventually arrested. Their motives, rooted in old resentments and a fear of dishonor. The trial brought some measure of justice, but it could not erase the pain or restore what had been lost. Amina herself faced scrutiny and judgment, both from the authorities and her own community, her life forever marked by tragedy. Yet, for all the answers uncovered, many questions lingered. Why had no one intervened sooner? Could Michael's fate have been different if warnings had been heeded, or if trust had been tempered with caution? The case exposed deep-seated prejudices and the dangers of blind faith in people, in systems. In the hope that goodwill alone could overcome centuries of suspicion, the story became a cautionary tale. A stark reminder that good intentions are not always enough to keep us safe. It forced both communities to confront uncomfortable truths about justice, forgiveness, and the fragile line between trust and naivety. And as the world moved on, the lessons of Michael and Amina's journey lingered, unresolved and unforgettable. The story of Father Michael and Amina is not just a tragedy, it is a mirror, reflecting the risks and rewards of reaching across boundaries in a world still divided by fear and misunderstanding. Their journey began with hope, with the belief that compassion and dialogue could heal old wounds. But it ended as a stark reminder that even the purest intentions can be undone by secrets, cultural tensions, and the dangers that lurk in the shadows of trust. For those who travel far from home, especially to places where customs and beliefs differ from their own, Michael's story is a cautionary tale. It is vital to listen to warnings, to research local dynamics, and to remain vigilant. No matter how noble the mission, or how strong the connection, blind trust, while beautiful in its innocence, can leave us vulnerable to forces we do not fully understand. Always share your plans with loved ones, keep lines of communication open, and never ignore your instincts when something feels wrong. Yet, this story is also a testament to the power of courage and empathy. Michael and Amina dared to believe in a better world, and their efforts, though met with tragedy, sparked conversations that continue to ripple outward. Their legacy is a call to action, to build bridges, but also to protect ourselves and each other as we do so. Let us honor their memory by learning from their journey, by reaching out with open hearts, but also with open eyes. In the end, hope is not lost. Every act of understanding, every moment of honest dialogue, brings us closer to the world Michael and Amina dreamed of. Let their story inspire us to move forward wiser, braver, and more determined to create connections that endure, even in the face of darkness.